Okay, so 4.6, we're going to graph inequalities. So it's similar to how you did graphing on a number line, but if you did graphing on the XY axis with lines, it's going to be the same rules. So I'm going to review that, okay? So first thing is that if you have the symbol greater than or less than, it's going to be a solid line, okay? If it is without the bar, then it's going to be a dashed line. And so it really would look like here's the dashed, or you have the solid line. Okay. Some people can tell which way is greater or less, but you can also test a point if you're not sure. If you plug in a point and it's true, you shade that side. If it's not true, then you shade the other side of the region. Okay, so you can determine, and I'll show you both strategies. So when you graph, I do want you to include some of the other features like the vertex, the intercept, things like that. It really depends on the form that you're given. So if we look at number 1, it's given in standard form. So this one, we could make a table of values. Oops, I dropped the squared. Put that on there for me. But really, this factors. So I'm going to kind of review that with you as well. So we want to multiply x squared times -5. It's a good time to review. The factors of 5x squared that will add to give me -4 would be 5 times 1. And to get -4, I would have -5 plus 1, because that adds to give you that middle term. So that's how I know these are going to be the right factors. So we're going to rewrite the middle term. We get x squared minus 5x plus 1x, and then minus 5. Okay? I'm ignoring that inequality because that has to do with the shading and the graph. So then we do grouping. So we look and we say, well, what do those two terms have in common? They both have an x. So if you take an x out, and then what do these have in common? Well, they don't have anything, but you can always divide by 1. So I get x minus 5. And remember, these parentheses need to match. That means you did it correctly. So then you put the terms on the outside together, and the repeat terms go together. And now I'll bring that symbol back down, okay? So to graph, remember it's quick to graph these using the roots. So I'm going to set these equal to 0, and you can do this in your head. So -1, x minus 5 equals 0, so add 5 to both sides, so x equals 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I get a dot, and at -1, I get a dot. Remember, your vertex is right in the middle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So half of that is 3. So 1, 2, 3. I know my vertex is on this line. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Okay. So that's at what? 1, 2. Okay, so x equals 2 is where my vertex is. So if I want to find y, I can go ahead and plug in 2 to either my purple equation or my original. I'll just use my original. So I get y, and we're going to make it equals for a second. So 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 5. And you want to type that all straight in to get the y value of the vertex. So I'll do vertex is at 2. And then what do we get? 4 minus 8 minus 5. So 4 is -9. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so here we have just greater than, so that means I get a dotted line. And if you forget, you can write the word dotted. I'll totally understand what that means. Sometimes I forget too. Now what we want to do is we want to know, well, which way greater? Are we going to shade here, or are we going to shade here? So if you can't tell, you're going to go ahead and just pick any point and plug it in to see if it's true or false. So I just like to pick 0, 0. Okay. So if I pick 0, let's make it blue. If I pick 0 for y and 0 for x, we'll see if that's true. Is 0 bigger than 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 5, which actually gives you -5. So is 0 bigger than -5? Yes, so since that's true, that means we're going to shade wherever that dot was, and that's inside the parabola. Okay? All right, let's try another one. So let's look at example number 2. Well, this one, I know I can factor that as well. So this is going to be common factoring. So I get y is less than or equal to, they both divide by 3, and they both have an x in common. So if we divide by 3x, we're left with x minus 2. So then we could take each of those factors and set them equal to 0 to find our roots. So divide by 3, so x equals 0. And add 2, so x equals positive 2. So remember, our vertex is right in the middle, which actually happens to be at 1. Ah. Okay, sorry about that. I had hit something else. All right, so let's go ahead and move my window back. Okay. All right, so our vertex happens to be at x equals 1. So remember, we're going to take 1 and we're going to plug that in to the original equation. So we get y equals 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1, which is 3 minus 6 is negative 3. So we go over 1 and then down 3. So I've got my 3 points to make my parabola. Since we have the bar, that means it's going to be a solid line because we can include all the points that are on the parabola itself as answers. So now we need to do shading. Well, 0, 0 is a point on the graph, so I can't use 0, 0. So I'm going to pick, how about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 2. I'm going to pick this point. So that's at 5, 2. And I just picked any point I want. So x is 5 and y is 2, and we'll see if it's true. Is 5, oops, sorry, y is 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 3 times x is 5, so 5 squared minus 6 times x is 5. Well, that's 2 is less than or equal to, we're going to type that in. So we get 75 minus 30, which is 45. Well, yeah, that's true. So that means that this point is true, so it gets shaded. And so that means this time everything's outside. And some students can see like, oh, if we're less, that means we need to be below. And that's true. If we were greater, we needed to be above. It's just sometimes it's hard for students to tell what's above. Okay, and let's try our third example. So this one is already in factored form. So we're going to find our roots. So we're going to set each of these equal to 0. Add 4. So I'll put a dot, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then x plus 2 equals 0, so subtract 2. So x equals negative 2. And then we have to remember that our vertex is right in the middle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So we need to go 3. 1, 2, 3. So it happens to be at 1. So our vertex is at 1, and we'll find our y value. So if I plug in 1, we get negative 1/2, 1 minus 4, 1 plus 2. So type all of that in. So negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Half of that is a decimal, 4.5, positive. So I'm going to go over 1 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Now, this doesn't have the bar, so we're going to use a dotted line, and it is wider, which should make sense because a is 1/2, so remember that was a compression. So then we'll pick a point. I want to do less, so I'm going to pick 0, 0. So is 0 less than negative 1/2, 0 minus 4, 0 plus 2. So what do we get? Negative 8 times half is 4. Is 0 less than 4? That's true, so I shade where that is, which is inside. Okay? So we do factoring and roots a lot. So on your assignment, I tell you to do 4, and I give you 6 equations, and I give you 8 graphs. Okay, so you can do some work up here. You can do work down here and match those up. Go ahead and type in the uppercase letter with some of your work. Okay, all right, good luck.